All right, get ready to dive into a world you probably haven't thought much about: polyester films. You sent over a ton of documents about Garware Hi-Tech Films Ltd, GHFL for short, and their Q2 FY25 performance. It's really got people talking. We've got press releases, this investor presentation. It's packed with visuals, and even the official reports filed with the Bombay Stock Exchange. Our mission, well,
Oh.
let's figure out how this under-the-radar company is making waves in the global market.
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating story. GHFL is a company most people haven't heard of, but I bet you their products are everywhere. They're a global leader in specialty polyester films. Think about the protective film on your new car, the window tint that keeps your office cool.
Okay, so they make stuff I use every day but never really think about. What's so special about this freaking performance? Why are we talking about them?
Well, their Q2 FY25 results are really something. And
Yeah.
it's not just the growth, it's what's driving it. They've made a real shift
Hmm.
away from just basic films. And now they're focusing on these high value added products, and it's paying off.
Hmm. Give me an example. What kind of high-value products are we talking about?
Take their consumer products division, CPD. They're going after the premium market with solar control films. And those paint protection films you see in all those fancy cars, it's a smart move. Especially as consumers in mature markets, they just become more discerning.
So it sounds like their whole strategy is about catering to a very specific
Yeah.
high-end customer.
Exactly. And you can see that in their financials. Their revenue just exploded, up 56.3% year on year.
Yeah.
And their CPD is a huge part of that growth. Get this, they even won the tint-off competition in the USA.
Wait, a tint-off competition? What? Yes.
It's a real thing. All these pro tinters from all over, they compete to see who can install window film, with the most precision and skill. And GHFL, they had the top-ranked tinter, which says a lot about their products and the people they work with.
That is wild. I had no idea there was so much competition in the window tinting world. But it makes sense that a company aiming for global dominance would be at the top of their game.
Absolutely. And their global footprint, it is impressive. They operate in over 90 countries. Think about that. Over 80% of their revenue comes from exports. They've got sales offices in the USA, UK, plus this whole global network of, those expert tinters.
Wow, so they're not just a big fish in a small pond. They're out there on the world stage competing. In fact, the investor presentation even listed some pretty big clients, like the Bank of Brazil, Imperial College London, even major airports like Luton and Changi.
Oh, yeah. And they're even doing a project for a massive mall in Mohali, Punjab, supplying those architectural films. It just goes to show how many different ways their products can be used.
Okay, so we're starting to see how GHFL is really strategically positioning themselves in the market. But what are the key things driving their success? How do they go from this, relatively unknown company to a global player?
Well, their R&D and innovation, those are crucial. They have a whole team, over 50 people, dedicated to constantly developing new and unique films, in fact. Last year, they won a Top 50 Innovative Company Award.
So it's not just about making the same old films. They're really pushing the boundaries, coming up
Yeah.
with new solutions.
Exactly. And sustainability, that's another key factor.
Yeah.
They're a leader in eco-friendly shrink films made with recycled PT. That aligns perfectly with that growing global demand for sustainable packaging.
Right, that makes a lot of sense, especially as more companies are trying to,
Yeah.
reduce their environmental impact. But what about their domestic market here in India? What's their strategy here?
Well, they're really going after the Indian market, especially for paint protection films, or PPF. The potential there is just huge. Think about it. Only about 1% of cars in India use PPF. Compare that to 10–12% in the US and China.
Wow, that's a huge difference. But it seems like that would be a challenge, right? I mean, how do you convince people to buy a product they don't even know they need?
That's a great question. And it is a challenge GHFL is facing head on. They're taking a multi-pronged approach,
Hmm.
and it seems to be working.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how are they building that market for PPF in India?
One way is through their network of Garware application studios, GAS. They're basically high-end detailing shops that use only GHFL products. They're popping up all over India. It gives consumers a chance to see how good PPF is firsthand.
Ah, I see. So they're creating this whole ecosystem around their products, controlling the quality and the application process.
Precisely. They're also partnering directly with car manufacturers, the OEMs. Imagine this. You walk into a dealership, pick out your new car, and bam, you've got the option to get that top-of-the-line paint protection right then and there.
That's smart. It makes PPF way more accessible for the average car buyer.
Right. And of course, they're doing a lot of digital marketing, influencer campaigns to create awareness and demand. It's all about educating consumers. showing them the value.
So they're not just relying on traditional channels, they're going straight to the customer. But what about those, commodity products they've been moving away from, like the
hmm
shrink films and stuff?
Well, even there, they're doing really well. Their industrial products division, or IPD, it's still a major part of their business, in fact. They've got something like 70% market share in India's shrink film market.
Wow, I had no idea. They're kind of a hidden giant in that market, too.
They are, and they're leveraging that sustainability focus in this area, too. They're one of the first companies in India to produce those eco-friendly shrink films made from recycled PE, tapping right into that growing demand for sustainable packaging.
That's really smart. They're aligning their products with those global trends,
Yeah.
appealing to environmentally conscious consumers.
And they're also benefiting from this global trend of companies trying to diversify their supply chains beyond China. India is becoming a much more attractive option for manufacturing.
So even in their quote-unquote commodity business, they're finding ways to innovate and stand out. It's not just about price. It's about quality, reliability, and meeting the needs of their customers.
You got it. They seem to have a really good grasp of how the global market works.
Okay, so we've talked about their global footprint, their focus on new products, their strategic initiatives in the market. We're starting to get a good picture of this company, but there's one thing we haven't dug into yet, their financial performance. Those Q2 FY25 numbers, they're pretty impressive.
You're right. Let's take a closer look at those statements. See what they tell us about GHFL's profitability and growth. Okay, so let's dive into these financial statements. I always think it's so interesting how numbers can tell a story.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me the story. What jumps out at you from these numbers?
Well, right off the bat, their consolidated quarterly performance, it's remarkable. Their revenue came in at a whopping 620.6 crores. That's a 56.3% increase year on year. Remember how we were talking about their shift toward high-value products? This is it. That strategic division is paying off.
So it's not just growth for the sake of growth, it's strategic focused growth.
Exactly. And it's not just about revenue. Their profit after tax, or PBT, it crossed 100 crores for the first time ever in a quarter.
Whoa, their highest ever quarterly profit. That's a big deal. But I gotta admit, some of these financial terms, like EBITDA, they always kind of make my head spin.
I hear you. EBITDA can sound intimidating, but it's a pretty simple concept. Think of it like looking under the hood of a car. It shows you how well the engine's running before you factor in all the other costs, like fuel and maintenance.
Okay, so it's a way to see how efficiently they're running their core business before all the other financial stuff.
Exactly. And GHFL's EBITDA, it's on a massive jump, 103.3% year on year. It's like their engine suddenly got twice as powerful.
That's one powerful engine, so it's safe to say they're becoming much more profitable.
Absolutely. And if you look at their consolidated half-year performance, it gets even more interesting. Revenue grew by 41% year on year, reaching 1,095.1 crores, and their PAT for the half year grew by an incredible 115% compared to the same period last year, reaching 192.6 crores.
Okay, now those are some impressive numbers. It's not just growth, it's skyrocketing.
It is. And it's not just the top and bottom line. Their margins have also improved significantly. Remember, margins basically tell us how much profit a company makes for every rupee of revenue they generate.
Got it. So higher margins mean they're keeping more of the money they make.
Exactly. And GHFL's EBITDA margin for Q2 FY25 was 24.2%, compared to 18.6% in the same quarter last year. It's a big jump, a clear indication that their move to value-added products is working.
They're making more money on each product they sell. That's a really good sign for their long-term profitability. But looking beyond the profit and revenue, what else did these financials tell us about GHFL's overall health?
Well, their cash flow statement shows a net increase in cash and cash equivalents, reaching a healthy 126.8 crores, meaning they're not just making money on paper, they're bringing in the actual cash, which is crucial for any business.
So they're generating cash, they're profitable, and they have a history of paying dividends to shareholders. That's pretty attractive for any investor.
You're right. They've consistently paid out 100% of their profits to shareholders since fiscal year 2018. And here's another impressive thing. They have zero debt. That's an amazing position to be in, especially these days.
Zero debt. That gives them a lot of flexibility to invest in growth and weather any storms that might come their way.
Exactly. Overall, these financial statements paint a really positive picture of GHFL's financial health and future. They've made smart choices, they're managing things well, and they're seeing the rewards.
Okay, so we've seen the numbers, And they're impressive, no doubt. But I'm always curious about the other side of things, the potential downsides. Are there any risks or challenges that GHFL might face moving forward?
That's a great question. Always important to look at both sides of the coin. One potential risk is the competition. The global polyester film market, it's pretty crowded. You've got players from China, Korea, all over, vying for that market share.
So they can't just sit back and relax. They have to keep innovating, stay ahead of the competition.
Exactly. They're not just competing on price. It's about quality, technology, brand recognition, customer service.
And what about external factors like those supply chain disruptions we keep hearing about? Could those impact GHFL?
Absolutely. They rely on a global network of suppliers. So any hiccups in shipping or logistics, those could affect their production and their profitability. And then there's the whole issue of raw material prices. Polyester films are made from petroleum products, so their costs are tied to oil prices, which, as we all know, can be unpredictable.
Right. So even with a solid plan and a strong financial position, they're not immune to those external forces. It's a good reminder that business, it's always about managing risk, adapting to change.
Well said. But looking at their track record, GHFL seems pretty good at doing just that. They've handled tough situations before, and they've always come out stronger.
That's good to hear. What about their future plans, though? Do these reports give us any clues about where they're headed?
Well, they've mentioned expanding their domestic market share in India, especially for PPF. They see a huge opportunity there, given how low the adoption rates are compared to other countries.
That makes sense. And with that new PPF production line they're building, they'll have the capacity to meet that growing demand.
Exactly. They're also looking to expand into new regions, places like Southeast Asia and Africa, where there's increasing demand for specialty films.
So they're not content with just India. They've got their sights set on global expansion.
Yeah, they're ambitious.
They are.
And they're continuing to invest a lot in R&D, developing new products, improving existing ones, with a big focus on sustainability, which is only becoming more important for everyone.
Right, like those eco-friendly shrink films made from recycled PT. It's a smart move for their business and for the environment.
Absolutely. All in all, GHFL seems to have a clear path forward, and they're doing a good job of executing their strategy.
Okay, so we've covered their plans, their amazing financials, and even peeked into their future. We're getting a pretty complete picture of this company. But there's one more aspect of GHFL's success we haven't talked about, their commitment to sustainability and community engagement.
You're right. It's easy to get caught up in the numbers and the business side. But what really sets GHFL apart is that they take a holistic approach. They're not just focused on profits. They're committed to making a real difference.
Yeah. The investor presentation actually had a whole section on their environmental and community initiatives. It's clear they take it seriously.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that next. It's a crucial part of their story.
Okay, so we've seen how well they're doing financially and globally, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about GHFL's commitment to sustainability and community engagement. They're not just about the bottom line, it seems. They're going for something more, well, holistic.
Yeah, it's really nice to see, in a world where it's all about profits, GHFL is showing you can care about purpose too. And they're not just talking about it. They're actually doing things.
Right. The investor presentation highlighted all kinds of initiatives. What stood out to you? What was really impressive?
Their environmental efforts are pretty amazing. They've got a bunch of programs in place. Energy efficiency, water conservation, waste management. They even use eco-friendly materials. They've got this zero liquid discharge policy at their factories, so they're not harming water resources.
That's huge, especially in India. It shows they're serious about minimizing their impact.
Exactly. And they're not stopping there. They're all about that circular economy, using recycled PET in their products, like those eco-friendly shrink films we talked about.
Right. That's good for everyone. Good for the planet, good for business.
Definitely. But it goes beyond just the environment. They're really involved in community development, too.
Yeah, the presentation mentioned those Garware community centers in Aurangabad. What are they doing there?
They're taking a pretty holistic approach. Education, healthcare, rural development. They're even helping with water scarcity in those rural areas. Reviving and maintaining bore wells. That's so important for people's livelihoods.
It's great to see a company giving back to the communities where they work, going beyond just providing jobs.
Yeah, and they're focused on young people, too. They've partnered with organizations like the National Bulb Havan, giving kids opportunities to learn and grow. Overall, their efforts have helped over 200,000 people.
That's incredible. It really shows they care about their employees, the communities, the environment. It's a good reminder that you can be successful and still do good in the world.
Absolutely. GHFL is proving you can be profitable, ambitious, and compassionate.
Hmm.
It's all about that holistic approach where business and social good work together.
So we've covered a lot in this deep dive. We looked at GHFL's innovative products, how they position themselves in the market, their fantastic financials, and their commitment to sustainability and their communities. We've seen how a company that most people haven't even heard of is quietly becoming a major player globally.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. They're really changing what it means to be a successful company.
They are. And they've given us a lot to think about as people become more aware of things like car protection, energy-saving films, sustainable packaging. Could companies like GHFL, the ones that care about profit and purpose, become the big names everyone knows?
It's a great question.
Uh-huh.
And something we'll be watching for sure.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of Garware Hi-Tech Films. Remember, sometimes the most interesting stories are hidden in plain sight. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.